And as a result, we have Mr. Mukund, who very graciously agreed to interact with us. And we often think that institutions like CMI are so out of reach, they are inaccessible. But I think it's just a matter of asking, and it can actually happen. So thank you for being here. A quick introduction of Mr. Mukund and his prolific biography is he's got a fantastic, as you can imagine, resume. But Mr. Mukund is the director and professor of computer science at the Chennai Mathematical Institute. It's a research and education institute in Chennai. It's one of the finest in the country. He has served as the president of the Indian Association for Research in Computing Science from 2011 to 2017. He is also the president of the Association for Computing Machinery India Council from 2016 to 2018. He was elected fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences in 2018, and he's been the national coordinator of the Indian Computing Olympiad since 2001. He did his BTech in Comp Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay, and his PhD in Computer Science at Aarhus University in Denmark. Mr. Mukund, I'd like to start off by asking you the first question, and a basic question, which is, as the director of CMI, right? Could you give us the essence of CMI that one may not be able to fathom through the website, because the name itself has math. And as I was telling you before we let everyone join in, that you have two moderators that are on opposite ends of the spectrum here, because Punya is a math whiz. He's like a math crazy person, and I'm someone who's deathly terrified of mathematics. I always had math phobia, and so you have math in your name. And I think a lot of people just assume that CMI is all just about math. So can you just tell us a little bit more about CMI?
Yeah, so as you said, of course, math runs through all the academic programs that we do, but a lot of it is not what you might consider classical mathematics. As you pointed out, I am myself a computer scientist, and many people don't realize that computer science is very strongly based on mathematical foundations. Of course, we also have some people working in physics, which has also been a long time partner of mathematics, especially theoretical physics. And recently, we have started a data science program at the master's level, which brings together a lot of different disciplines. So data science itself is a little bit of an umbrella term. And I don't think any three people or two people would agree on what data science constitutes, but roughly speaking, it is a combination of some ideas from statistics, some ideas from mathematics, some ideas from computing, and largely concerned with making sense out of information, which everybody is now, regardless of their background, overloaded with. And therefore, it's the real challenge now. We all have so much data, but what can we do with it, and what productive use can we put to it? So therefore, there's an undeniable mathematical I would say, strain pervading all of these. And so you can't come to CMI and not be interested in maths, but you don't have to be doing pure maths for the sake of maths. Right? So mathematics itself at the highest levels is a very abstract subject. It's quite different from maths that we learn in school, in the sense that the maths that we learn in school is very often more, procedural. We learn how to do various things, starting from, of course, manipulating fractions, but then we will go on to doing some trigonometry, some calculus. A lot of it is, formulaic in some sense, and not much of conceptual understanding is actually taught in our schools. And so there is a leap of level for those who actually want to pursue maths, and some students are interested in that, but many students who have this procedural fluency really find that that comes to their advantage when they're dealing with these more, I hesitate to call them applications, but these more associated areas where an understanding of mathematics is good, but you also need to understand the context. So the thing that you asked fundamentally is what these people don't know about CMI from the website or whatever. So I think answering your first question right before introducing me. So I think the main thing is that CMI is a very friendly place. Okay, it's a very small and friendly place. And I think from the fact that we were always been a small place, but now we are bigger, but we are not huge. We are like, I would say, the size of a department in a place like an IIT or something. So that way we are kind of a compact organization. But we have a very small core group of administrators. And because we moved from research to teaching, our experience in the initial stages was always that students were research students and our kind of younger colleagues. And that attitude, I think, remains. So I think we continue to treat all students with some, respect and some, and they also in turn, I think, treat studying as their main occupation. So I was recently talking to a colleague from IIT, and she was asking me the same question. She said, because one of her colleagues' sons is studying at CMI, and they find at IIT that a lot of students who come in are totally focused, having got into IIT, on placements and how to prepare your resume, and not so much on learning what they're supposed to learn. And she apparently asked this colleague's son who joined CMI, how is it? And he says, I study and everybody studies. So I think that is, the magic of CMI, that, everybody comes with an intention to study. And by and large, of course, there are exceptions, but by and large, people continue to take interest in their subject. Their interests may change as they evolve, but I think that is a big theme, that everybody is passionate about what they do.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukund. I'm sure all of us now understand at least what CMI stands for now. And from picking up from what you just mentioned, I'd like to ask the next question to you, which is, who is an ideal candidate for CMI? As a college counselor, one of the questions that's thrown off at me when I have to work on college list for students is helping them find the right fit institution. We focus on the word fit as very important. Sometimes students may get into, say, if parents want to go by a certain ranking metric, only from the purpose of that, say a student may get into a university which is ranked higher, two institutions, and say one is ranked third in the world and the other which is ranked fifth. But there have been times where I have, as an unbiased college counselor who has the best interest of the child in mind, picked up the fifth best, fifth ranked institution and not the third rank, because I feel that it's a better fit for that particular student. So all of us IECs here, focus on finding that right fit institution. So who, according to you, is the right fit student for CMI, whether it's on the basis of academic rigor that CMI throws off to its students, whether it's the level of prior skill that they need to have in that subject, in addition to, of course, a curious and seeking mind, which I think is a requisite for any institutions. Who's an ideal student? That's part A of my question. And part B, what is a good way for all of us as independent college counselors or high school counselors out here in this forum to probably contact the admissions office at CMI if we need some more information, or we need to assess whether CMI is the right fit for that student or not?
Okay, so second question is easier, so I'll start with that. Yeah. So we have, the primary way of contacting CMI is through email. There is a catch-all address, which is admissions@cmi.ac.in. And if you write to admissions, then either you will get an immediate response if it is a factual question concerning some process or some eligibility or what kind of programs or when the applications are going to open. Or if it's a more nuanced question where you want to find out something or about a particular topic or something like that, then it will be forwarded to an appropriate person. So it's a kind of point of contact. So just feel free to drop a line to admissions@CMI. You will normally get a reply within half a day, and that will kind of be the best way to get started on a conversation. And in terms of further engagement, we are completely open. I mean, if people want to come and visit and see people or talk to people, we are always open to people making an appointment and coming. Of course, the right person has to be there, but other than that, I think we are quite, willing to engage, because it is also true that, from our side, you're talking about students being the right people to come, but we also need to find the right students. So anybody who has a handle on reaching out to students who we might be interested in, we are interested in. So we'll be happy to talk to anyone. Now, coming to the first question about So it's, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I don't think I can say much more than what you said. They should have, I think primarily they should be interested in the subject. We don't particularly expect them to have a certain special, high level of knowledge in a particular area or something. So it's not a very rigorous, I mean, it's all through an entrance exam, right? Entrance exams are notoriously, what should I say, they are things that people are afraid of. We like to believe that our entrance exam does not require, this kind of coaching center type of thing, but rather it requires students to explore for themselves the subject. And if they have some understanding, it doesn't have to be all-encompassing. Then they will typically do well. So we do publish all our exam papers with answers, and we are happy to answer any questions about them. So we don't have anything to hide in terms of the process. So, but I think the main thing that we would like to see in our students is an understanding of the subject beyond, as I said, just being able to manipulate formulas and get the right answer. That's not really the end goal. So of course, every exam has questions where you have to do something, but we try to set, interesting questions which are not, they're not tricky or they're not, technical, but rather they are questions where we hope through them we get an understanding of whether a student knows what they're doing or they don't know what they're doing. I mean, why are they doing this rather than that? So that's basically how we assess the students. Of course, an exam is a very imperfect way to do this, but given large volumes, that's the only way you can do it, because it's not very practical to sit and talk to everybody for an hour and try to understand. But I think any student who has an interest in any subject related to maths, could be physics, could be maths, could be computing, I think they should think about it. Now, the flip side is what we find is that the problem is usually the parents and the extended family who see anybody, any child, especially in school, who is far from independent about the choices that they make, unfortunately, is driven towards engineering if they have an aptitude for, STEM subjects. So,
Yeah.
so this is a problem that it's not easy to overcome. It's a kind of social engineering problem, and to a limited extent, one could try to, spread some information about it, but it's also very cultural. I mean, some parts of the country are more inclined to allow students to pursue sciences and maths, and some are not. So we do find that also that we get students from all over the country, but we certainly find that some areas some parts of the country are more receptive and some parts are less receptive. So I think that is an independent question.
Very interestingly, you mentioned how the country is conditioned towards engineering as an option. You put it nicely that if they're STEM oriented, but we know that even if a student is not STEM oriented, but they remotely get decent marks, they're pushed into a particular direction. What is it that CMI has been doing or might be able to do to create a sense of awareness in the different opportunities within STEM for K-12 students, especially high school students, because we see that often institutions like CMI are not very vocal in the conversation with families or with schools or with counselors. And so is CMI doing anything on its own, to involve or sort of engage with K-12 students about STEM and, increase that curiosity, enhance skills, and also give them a sense of awareness on what are the types of options or opportunities like? So what is your engagement at this point with K-12 and what are the kinds of opportunities
ಇದು
that...
ಕಾದೆಯೋ ಇದು
Aparna, can you mute yourself?
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there are a few things that we do, which are local, which are, for example, next week or at the end of this week, we have every year a 2-day open kind of thing for school students from within Chennai. We organize some 2 days of lectures on different topics related to physics. So typically 3 per day. And we invite every school to send both students and teachers from, say, grades 9 to 12. And on a good year, we get 200 odd students and teachers coming, sometimes less, sometimes more. So this is one thing that we do. And like this, we try very hard to engage with schools in the city to go and give popular lectures in their math clubs or their science clubs. But unfortunately, what we find is the problem is not on our side, but the fact that the school calendar is so busy that there will always be a great enthusiastic start. We will do one, maybe two of these sessions, and then the whole thing will get subverted by some exams and some other kind of constraints. So that's something which is a little hit or miss. But we do. If anybody asks us to come and give a talk or to attend an event and be a part of it, we are very happy to participate. Of course, this is all local, as I said, because our reach is also limited by our faculty and everything. Now, on a wider scale, it's not us, but our students, actually. So I think, as you could imagine, I think when the students are even more keen than us to get other students to be like them. So they have taken it upon themselves for the last 5-6 years to actually conduct a national level, math and science competition, so to speak, to try and get students engaged. So they call it actually STEMs. Okay, so it expands to something, but it's basically a kind of open-ended exam at different levels. And the attraction that they have is that they will take the top, I don't know how many, 30, 40 of them, and the top 30 or 40 get to come and spend a few days at CMI attending some special lectures and so on. So this is something, now it's a moot question whether this reaches out to new students or only those students who are already interested in it. But at least it is one way to reach out across the country. And I think they have been reasonably successful. They're quite visible. But as I said, whether you can get a disinterested student engaged through this is a difficult question to answer. At the high end, as you mentioned, I have been involved with the Olympiads in computing, but also from this year, for instance, we have hosted the Math Olympiad campus here, even though the Math Olympiad is organized in the Homi Bhabha Center in Mumbai, but the students actually come and spend a month in summer with us. Now, again, these are the final stages of the Olympiad where they're already deeply into it. But I think through the Olympiad movement, one could again try to reach out, but it's not that we are doing very much at that level, except in the computing thing where I'm involved, but that's one other way. And going forward, we have an ambitious plan. So we have a new campus, or I shouldn't say new campus, but a new building coming up. So we have a little small piece of land very close to where we are, about 10-minute walk away. And one of the things we're planning to set up there is a kind of, you can call it whatever you like. The code word is math museum, but it's more like a maths outreach center. So where we would like to actually have throughout the year some exhibits and giving some idea about the possibilities in maths and some of the excitement of maths, and also maybe have events and activities going on. So if that gets operational, which I hope will be the case maybe 2 years from now, we will have something a little bit more constructive in this space.
Just a little food for thought before we move on to our next question is, you mentioned the open day or the open house, which is currently open to local Chennai schools. And we all understand the challenges with school calendars. We would love as DOC if you're open to opening it up, nationally, where of course whoever is interested comes in on their own, registers, all of that. We'd be happy to spread the word about the open day, because we understand that maybe a student from Delhi may not be able to come, but a student from, say, Bangalore, or somewhere closer might actually want to or be able to come. So that's one, and we would love to see if we're able to organize like a few hours, of a visit to CMI for some of our counselors, where, we can coordinate with you, but the idea is we come on our own buck, but we come there if there is some kind of a plan in place where somebody from admissions or faculty can actually address them and show them the campus, etc. And we can talk about this later. But the idea is, how do we open up CMI to more students and more schools across the country and more counselors across the country? So we can talk about it, offline
Yeah.
once the conversation is done.
Yeah.
But that would be a great takeaway for us as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly possible, and we can talk about it. I don't think there's any hesitation in doing that from our side. And again, having a larger reach, and if people are willing to come, I think it's certainly a possibility. So during the pandemic, like everything else, these lectures went online, and it was a little possibly, the first year of the lectures online, there was a huge response. Like I said, we had 200 coming to CMI in person, but the number attending online was even more. But the second year, maybe because of fatigue and also, just confusion about school calendars and all that, it was a huge drop. So, but I think going forward, we can also consider that option, to have some kind of maybe a monthly kind of outreach talk, which is hosted by CMI. It doesn't have to be somebody from CMI actually doing the lecturing, it could be somebody else. Because even our talks with these open house, we do call people from nearby institutions like IIT Madras and so on to give talks. So that's also something that we could consider to give a wider reach. Because I think, as you pointed out, I think the more people who know about it and the more we can explain what these options are, the better chance we have of getting good students.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Punya.
Okay, Mr. Mukund. My question is now, slightly digressing from the institutional aspect of what CMI is doing to focusing more on the industry aspect. And this is when you answer this question, you can answer first from the context of how CMI knowledge translates into what the industry is looking at. So my question is, what are some of the trends that you currently foresee or see, for that matter, in the industry as far as the purpose of and the scope of STEM education is concerned? So what are some of the trends that you see in that the industry may be looking at, the employers might be looking at for STEM grads, and how CMI might be trying to fill some of those gaps to ensure that the students are industry ready in line with the trends of today?
Yeah, so I'll answer this question, but I'll come back to what CMI students do separately. But so I think there is as I mentioned earlier, so I think where really the uptake is been very strong in the last few years has been in this area of data science. See, because every organization, doesn't matter what domain it is in, has humongous amounts of data about their operations. And slowly the word is spreading that if you can somehow tap into that information, you can make your whole business more effective, more profitable, whatever, more efficient. So it could be, so the kind of people who come to CMI, for instance, one side is finance, okay, banks and financial operations, because they are looking at data from the perspective of modeling trends and doing, the usual kind of things of what predicting financial trends and these stock options and all these kind of things. So that is one domain. But if you go outside that domain, if you look at any organization which operates with a large enough number of people, there are lots of logistical questions which they have, which can be answered with data and make their operations more efficient. So this could be something like, find a simpler way of, say, for example, processing expense claims. I mean, it sounds stupid, but a lot of manpower goes in totally mindless paperwork. So if you could have a system which would say these 80% of claims can be passed without questioning, then it cuts down a lot of the extra work that people are doing on this. So this kind of thing, which requires a mathematical understanding of the problem and translating. But you also have, as you all know, entertainment, Netflix, every major entertainment, I mean, including Indian things like Z and all that, are now creating programs based on what they perceive the audience wants. So there's a huge amount of interest in understanding, public taste, segmenting the audience, and the same is true of retail. So when you look at fashion trends, pricing, or even how to organize the layout of your shop, all of these things are being done now based on data. Okay? So there's a huge amount of this customer understanding side. And then you have manufacturing. Right? So it could be, again, supply, when to buy raw materials, because some large scale commodities are sold internationally and the price varies, or you might predict certain things because of international conflicts that certain prices will go up or will go down. So managing that kind of thing, but also, machinery these days, a lot of modern machinery is actually is set up to provide a lot of data about its operation. So you can do a lot of predictive maintenance. You can find out when things are going to fail, or do things like that, and also quality control. So tire manufacturers, for instance, have to examine tires before they send them out. VLSI, chip manufacturers have to look at silicon wafers before they use them for chips to see their defects. A lot of these things are very tedious to do manually. Right? So a lot of this is based on data, and a lot of the data's sort of analysis is based on a strong understanding of mathematics. So this is a big trend. And then there are other trends. So optimization has been a field of interest for airline scheduling, or crew. So in the airline kind of industry, crew scheduling, or vehicle operations for a truck fleet, or various other such things. So there are lots and lots of. There's no limit in terms of the industry areas where things can be done. And what is interesting now is, I think many of these things are being done in an Indian context. So I think traditionally we have this kind of industry perspective where many of these innovations are done outside and then they're imported or just adopted. But I think now many of the Indian companies are becoming independent in terms of it. So I think there's a lot of interest in hiring people with a strong math background, and I think they are willing to, spend some time indoctrinating them in the work they will need to do. But they don't expect people to be, specialized to that domain when they come in. But we should be adaptable, and they should be willing to learn. And of course, they need some basic familiarity with various concepts and some software tools. So that's where I think the real direction is. So it's really the data science direction, I think, is the going to be for some time the biggest, I would say, target area for people with a maths background. There are always, of course, exotic things, ISRO and these type of places are always going to be looking for people with a math background. Now, coming to what CMI students do. So traditionally, hardly any of our students actually joined industry, because as I said, we started off in a kind of research-focused way, and I think this percolated to the students. So a lot of our students, so we have a 3-year bachelor's and a 2-year master's. But whether it's after bachelor's or master's, most of the students were interested in further studies, and only after maybe that level. So if the bachelor students went to masters, maybe somewhere else they would do a master's and then graduate to a job. And the master's students may start off doing a doctorate and then decide to do a job. So we do have alumni who are in places like Google and Facebook and all these kind of places, right? But this master's in data science, which we started about 6 years back in 2018, has been a more clearly industry-focused program. So that admits about 50 students a year. And that's where now we have been discovering this huge interest in in this. And it's really astonishing, how because we try to organize people from industry coming and giving a talk about how they use data science in their company, so that the students also get a feel for how this theory that they're learning is applied in practice, and they get a chance to talk to. But it's really a widespread message. It ranges from entertainment and advertising to manufacturing to logistics to finance to, there is no real, there's no area I think is untouched.
Oh, okay, there are so many things that I want to ask you as a follow-up, but I'm going to try and make sense of all of it and mold it into maybe a two-part question. For some context, there is a lot of conversation and buzz about skill building, right? And rightly so. In K-12 especially, there's a lot of emphasis on skill building over degrees, right? While we want students to go into colleges that are good fits for them, but the idea is also to make sure that they are equipped with the right kind of skills so they are able to make the most of the university experience. So the two parts of my question are, first, other than the academic focus in an institution like CMI, what are the types of skill building measures that you implement or that you see, forget CMI, but don't forget CMI, but I'm saying including CMI, but the other institutions as well. What are the type of skill building requirements that students who are studying STEM focused degrees that they have? And the second part of this question is, how do you, and that's something that's related to what Shweta is asking, is how do you sort of, balance the logical with the character development and, technical and the soft skills bit of it? Because at the end of the day, any job without soft skills is not really fully done. So that's my question to you.
Yeah, so this is it's a big debate. So our take is that skills are important, but I think specific tools that people use, right, are going to change. And so you need to have a foundation which will transcend the technology that you're using today, and also the kind of things that you have learned in 1 year. And this is where, at least our feedback from the organizations that hire from our MSc Data Science program is that they feel that our students are a little bit more open and adaptable to new situations than students who come from more traditional degrees, where they have learned certain things, but if they are out of that comfort zone, they get a little bit more stuck. So what we try to do is, we teach, of course, a lot of foundational stuff, but from our perspective, the main skill is computational skill. In terms of technical skills, right? So we do try to introduce all our students, whether it's undergrad or masters, and especially the MSc Data Science students, to a variety of things which are reasonably current, and more importantly, to give them the confidence that if something new comes up, they will be able to learn it and proceed. So we do teach them basic programming, but then also specifically kind of tools and libraries which are used for various, like for example, for machine learning or for optimization, things like that. So that is our skill building thing. Now, the second part about soft skills is a big issue. It's undoubtedly one of the things that, so we have tried various measures with that. So we tried having a kind of a formal course which had very little uptake. Then we have tried having short workshops. We've also just tried informal mentoring. Students before, they wake up to this only when the interview season comes up, for example, for jobs. Right? Yeah. So then we have some well-wishers, people who are associated with us, who kind of sit and conduct or give them some advice, or maybe do mock interviews or things like that. But that's an area where I think we ourselves are, we don't have in-house expertise in some sense to do it. And it's not clear to us what is the best way. But yeah, CMI that way has been always a bit flexible about engaging people from outside to do these kind of things on a kind of you might call it need basis. So it's really then if any student asks for it, we are happy to provide it. But if we mandate it, then it turns out to backfire on us. So this is something that, yeah, we haven't yet figured out the right way to do it, I think, but we are kind of experimenting.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukund. That was insightful. And Shweta, thanks for asking that question. It was a very pertinent question, which all of us needed, clarity on. So my question to you, Mr. Mukund, is again about the trends in the STEM industry as a follow up to my previous question. So you very well answered about the current trend that you see where data science is the buzzword. Data is the new oil, not even new, rather it has been the oil for a few years now, where everybody's trying to cash on data, and hence there is this pressing demand for understanding the nuances of understanding how data is mined and data is analyzed, etc. So my question now is translating to few years from now, looking at say 5, 10, 15 years gamut from, because we do see a lot of trends within the STEM space changing. STEM is popular, but within STEM, there's this rewiring or reshuffling that happens every few years, where currently it's data science. A few years ago, it was more IT. So what are some of the things that you foresee in the next 5 or 10 years in terms of trends changing? Do you still feel that science is going to be more and more prevalent in the future, or do you see it taking more, taking a different or a more specialized course, or do you feel other areas in the STEM space taking a greater precedence over data science and analytics?
So, yeah, it's always been a little bit of a questionable case whether we need so many people trained in computer science or not. Okay, so quite honestly, I think a lot of the IT industry has been hiring people from backgrounds very differently. Right? Anybody who had some general logical thinking skills and had some kind of communication confidence could be trained to do what they're doing. So clearly, it's a low barrier job for most people. So I would say, on the other side, you see that places like IITs and all that, a lot of the people who study computer science end up actually in finance or something. So they're not doing computing. So I think in that sense, I think the computing space is kind of not representative of the educational, what should I say, the large volumes of people who are coming out of it. Now, I think one of the trends you're seeing now is that people are realizing this, that just like in industry, manual mechanical automation, where you can do things more efficiently and much more reliably using, robots and these kind of things like in car manufacturing and so on. And therefore, the need for assembly line workers, manual labor is reduced, and therefore employment requirements change. I think the same is happening in this kind of low floor IT space, right? A lot of routine coding, and this is really the big challenge. You were asking what is the next challenge of next 5 years. The next challenge is really this, what we now call generative AI, right? So basically large language models, but also the related things, anything which can create kind of plausible things is going to replace a lot of these routine. So a lot of routine coding, but it's not just in coding. It's a lot of. So this is really, if you want to coin a term, it's like white collar industrialization. The point is that so far we have been thinking in terms of factories being automated. Now it's kind of creative jobs are getting automated. So a first cut of, for example, if you need to produce a poster or an ad or something like that, it can as well be done by one of these tools. And then you can just have somebody with some experience and some skill and some other things to fine tune it rather than start from scratch. So the way that people use ChatGPT to write letters and so on, that extends to a whole range of things. And this is going to shake up, I think, a lot of industries. I mean, I know of one industry where one company where they lost a creative person who had to shift to a different city, and they replaced this person by ChatGPT. Okay, they didn't hire a new person. Right? So the remaining team was able to be as productive by just using the ChatGPT as a stand-in for some of the mundane things. And I think this is really a concern, I would say, for all industries, not just software, but particularly software. I mean, so software has already been facing this a little earlier in terms of, there is a whole branch of IT which is to do with testing of software, not creating, but testing of. I think software testing has been largely getting automated for even before all this stuff, this ChatGPT and LLMs and all these things happen. So I think there is going to be a huge shakeup, and I really have no idea, and I don't think anybody has a clear idea of what are the new, I should say, skills. Skills is probably not the right word, but what are the new ways in which students need to orient themselves to navigate those skills. See, there will always be, so for the kind of places where CMI people go, I think those places are reasonably immune to this because there's a small number of people, and as I said, many of them go into higher studies, higher research, where obviously you need to do some independent creative thing. But it is a concern for larger volumes of people, and therefore, certainly, if you look at IT now, right? During pandemic, first they all realized that they could all work from home. But now you're finding that IT hiring is coming down because they don't need to replace the people with as much of, new people as before. So the whole workforce is definitely decreasing. So there are trends which are hard to predict overall, but it looks a little, depending on how alarmist you are, it looks a little worrying.
Absolutely. And I think, oof, okay. So much to chew on. As you were speaking, I was relating this to a lot of the things that we do in our workshops with our limited information and knowledge and research on the future of jobs, the future of skills. And I think that I can't help but quote one of my favorite reports every single year, which is the Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum. And for the first time ever in 23, they introduced an entire segment on just skills for the first time ever. And they said these are the skills that employers and over 800 companies that are a part of this survey said that these were the top 50 skills that they looked for in their future workforce. And it's a 257 odd page report and super interesting for anyone who wants to read it. Please do. Some of the jobs that I have come across in one of the workshops that I do, which is called Future of Jobs and Skills, is algorithm bias auditor, drone traffic optimizer, smart home design manager, organ creator, right? And some extremely interesting jobs, which I think there are about 15 jobs that I talk about in this workshop, which are just unheard of. And they exist at this point. They exist right now. But these are not jobs that you get to doing with one degree. These jobs are a combination of a particular technical skill set because of a degree, but also a lot of other skills that the individual needs to have. How do you marry psychology and AI and linguistics? That's ChatGPT. And there's much more to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is not tech. Tech is the outcome. It's the way in which the platform is. But to put the ChatGPT together, you need someone who understands linguistics, who understands consumer behavior, who understands psychology. There's so many things to it. So the world is getting into, it's old news that everything is interdisciplinary. And I think I would just, on this note, really like to, because we have 15 minutes and I'm very mindful of time, we have 10 minutes. I know that we have a set of people who've been with us for the last 1 hour. I'd love to open up the forum and see if anyone has any questions for you or in general who wants to, voice out something. So guys, it would be great if you have a question, please raise your hand and we would love to call you on. And while you do that, I'd also like to give a special acknowledgement to Aparna Chandrasekharan, who is the counselor of 10X School. It's in Bangalore. And the school is it's started by the same management as Indus. And Aparna is someone who was deeply interested in CMI and has interacted with your team before. And she's one of the reasons why we're even having this conversation. So, Aparna, thank you for putting this thought in our head and making us do this. And if you're around, please unmute
Welcome.
yourself.
Yeah,
Please
now I
unmute
can.
yourself. Show us your face. Show us your
Okay, hang
face.
on.
We'd love to see
Hang
you.
on. I've just walked into the house, so from school. Hang on. I don't know if I'm,
Yes, there you
yeah,
are. There
okay,
you are.
visible.
Yes,
So,
awesome.
yeah, so
Aparna, please,
actually,
please go ahead. Yes.
yeah, I know. I have to say thank you to Dr. Mukund. I've troubled him enough, I think, with emails about my students' research or whether it is about participation in the computing Olympiad. And he has very kindly replied back. I'm sure he gets zillions of emails from, lots of important people and students and faculty, but he's been very kind and always replied to my email. So I'm really grateful to him for that. And yes, of course, some of my students do dream of getting into CMI. And the one question they often ask me is, ma'am, I believe it is tougher to get into CMI than to get into MIT. And I'd like Dr. Mukund to elaborate on that and tell us what are some of the strategies he would advise students to practice in terms of preparing for the entrance exam for CMI, and how do you think he can advise, what advice he would give students for cracking the very tough entrance examination? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there is truth in that statement, and that I think that the problem is this single entrance exam. You see, no matter how much you know and how good you are, there is always a matter of luck, right? The questions that come in the exam may not match exactly what you are strong, or on that day you might have an off day, or you might something which may not strike you. So I think in that sense, I would not say it's harder than getting into MIT, but I'd say it's more unpredictable, right? So you cannot be so sure. I mean, if you have done a certain amount and shown some all-round, uh, generally good academics, I think you should be able to get into a good university. And unfortunately, the reality of Indian academics is that there are too few, I would say, institutions where good students aspire to go. And therefore, we have these really, I would say, very uh, almost, unsympathetic admission procedures. And so I think that that's really the problem. The problem is that if we had more such institutions and there was a wider spectrum of them in terms of opportunities and subjects, we'd be a lot better off. But that's again, that there's a different problem there, which is staffing them, right? So even with new IITs and all that, the real challenge is not the infrastructure in terms of buildings and funding and all that, but the real challenge is getting good faculty to staff them. And the same is true of schools also, right? So this is the whole problem. It's a human resource problem. But yeah, so I would say that is the thing. So I don't have any, I cannot offer any advice except, uh, try to look at, try to understand the subject and try to look at the past exams and talk to other students. And I think there are communities of students who are interested in these kind of things, and they talk to each other and they learn from each other. And I think students do tend to learn from each other more effectively than they learn from adults. Of course, nowadays there are also a huge number of resources. The problem is there are too many online to teach these things, so it's difficult to keep track of what to not get lost in that. But I think any student who's engaged has a good chance. Of course, they need a little bit of effort to practice, but I do really believe that it's not as robotic as preparing for an IIT. So,
okay. Yeah, no, I do remember when I used to work before I moved to Bangalore and joined this high school. I used to work in the American consulate as an education advisor. And one of my students there who had applied to many US universities, got into UCLA and many such big colleges, decided to join CMI instead. And, his logic was that I'll get probably a better undergraduate education in mathematics at CMI than I would even at UCLA or UCSD. So I've never forgotten what he told me. And Aditya, his name is. So he went to CMI. So I've never forgotten that. But I have a Bhakti, if I may ask another question to Dr. Mukund, or if somebody else is waiting to ask,
No,
then
no, go
I
ahead, go
can
ahead.
come in.
I
Okay,
just
okay,
gesticulated. I was like,
okay,
yeah, go ahead, but
okay.
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. Dr. Mukund, my second question is regarding these NIRF rankings and the ranking scenario in India for colleges. My students are like kind of, and parents are obsessing over which is the top ranked university. And it seems to be, like NIRF on the website also, they have this one common sort of list of top institutions in India. And then for certain subjects alone, they have a subject-wise ranking for certain subjects, not all subjects. So the biggest problem is parents are so obsessed with getting them into the higher ranked institution, assuming that they're all making an assumption that because they get into a higher ranked institution, the child's future is guaranteed or they'll get better jobs, which is not the case, as many counselors will attest to, perhaps from their experience. It's not always the case, and you yourself may have seen that as well. How is there? Are you aware of whether the government is planning something else in terms of reworking this ranking framework? Or how do we advise our students to look beyond this? Is there any suggestions that you may have? Because it's very difficult to, like, I can't, I'm so surprised that my student says only IIT, but not willing to look at IISc's 4-year bachelor's degree in research or computing, which are two phenomenally good programs. But because they don't feature anywhere on that ranking list or subject ranking list, the parents are obsessed with IITs or NITs for that matter. So how do we sort of, help our students look beyond this, or do you know of any government's attempts to rework or revamp this ranking framework?
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know of NIRF in particular that they have any plans to rework it. I think completely opposed to this whole idea of reducing academic
Exactly.
thing to a number. And because unfortunately, I mean, if you look at some of these rankings and if you look at the institutions, you would obviously realize that these rankings do not reflect the
Exactly.
institutional reality, right? So this is clearly something where it's the usual problem everywhere, that once you set a kind of way of measuring something, then people will tune their things to measure well, not necessarily to do what the measurement is supposed to measure. So sort of gaming the system is kind of, and this is what a lot of institutions spend a lot of effort on, especially those which are reliant on large enrollments to meet their needs. And so IITs are not necessarily bothered about that, but certainly many private engineering colleges and so on are I think, spend quite a lot of effort in doing this. So we are at the other end. In fact, I mean, we don't even get ranked because I think we need 1,000 students or something. So, dealing with these in any form is very distasteful in terms of the kind of information that they collect is so orthogonal to what
Exactly.
that you need to establish quality. So, I mean, I don't subscribe to it. I certainly support any attempt to tell people to look beyond it. I suppose the best way, but it may be hard to do on a individual basis, is to find out, what the students of these places are doing. I think that's the true test. Right? So where are they going? What are they doing after that? But ultimately, that is the proof of the institution's quality, right? Where the alumni end up. But institutions are not necessarily truthful about that either. So it's a hard choice to make. I guess some of it you can just get by word of mouth through people who have been associated or know people who have been there. But certainly I would encourage not to blindly look at these rankings. And many of these rankings are also based on, as I said, parameters which are not relevant. And as you said, new programs like IISc's program, because they have not been around long enough, they might just not figure in these rankings. And it's totally strange to discard that on such a principle. So I don't have an answer to how to do it, but I would certainly encourage everybody to try and convince parents and students to look beyond these rankings and not be too worried. And because ultimately we all know, which are the better places, which are not. I mean, why do we need for example, when we go and watch somebody playing cricket, we don't obsess about their batting average. We know that somebody is good or bad on a given day, they might be good or bad. And so in that way, I mean, you have a mental image of who are the good players and who are the not so good players, and the rankings will change from day to day. But I think that we don't have that exposure, and therefore that maybe that confidence to do the same with institutions.
Okay. And one final question, Dr. Mukund, is a lot of my students are now feeling the pressure. I think it's more a peer pressure of wanting to do a research paper in high school, especially when they come to, grade 11 and 12. This obsession has now come about, I think, a lot also because a lot of US universities are, in this whole thing of profile building, they're looking at what else has the student done. And just because those who are applying to US are starting to, go get, sort of connect with private organizations who are providing this research. Applying to India are now obsessing over this, and they've been asking me, ma'am, can we reach out to a PhD scholar, say in Indian Statistical Institute or CMI or IIT? Would they be willing to mentor us for our research project? Because they realize that faculty members are too busy to perhaps take on a high school student at that as well. And maybe the faculty members may not also see the maturity in the high school student for research at a particular point. So would you say that this is okay for students to directly reach out to certain PhD students in institutions like yours to explore research mentorship, or would you not advocate for research in high school level at all?
Yeah, so I would not advocate, especially in these areas like maths and so on, because I think, as you rightly said, it's very hard to do anything meaningful at that stage, which is original, which is what research would require. One could certainly have interests and do something. So it really, this peer pressure it's really telling. I mean, it continues. I mean, you have undergrads also who want to do research at different levels, even though they are not necessarily equipped for it. And I think there's a lot of pressure, as you said, because some people are doing it and other people feel they're missing out. And but at the school level, I think that students should be encouraged to pursue things they are interested in. But I think bracketing it or branding it as a research paper, I think limits also how they think about something. Because then if you want to do research, you have to be fairly focused on one slice of narrow things, and it may not even be counterproductive. That you don't get to see the wider picture. So so I'm not for it in general. If somebody wants to do something interesting, build something. I mean, if they want to build an app, or they want to build some,
make a project or something.
Yeah, do a report on something which they're interested in. That's fine. I think it's fine, but it should come out of interest, not out of some kind of compulsion.
Right. And institutions like yours are only looking at students with the entrance exam results, or you don't look at all of these extra curriculars and co-curriculars?
Yeah. So we have So we have a small intake and we keep it simple. So we do the entrance exam, or if they have demonstrated through the Olympiads that they have done up to a certain level, then we take them directly. But it's just a way of because otherwise there's a huge amount of pressure from various pressure groups, and this child has got so and so marks, and it becomes like that. So we don't want so this is more to preserve our sanity than it's not necessarily fair, but it's just simplifies our lives.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Over to you, Bhakti. Yeah.
Thanks, Aparna. Go ahead, Punya.
Okay. Dr. Mukund, I think this is the only question I see on the chat box and none other. So this might be the last question that we might have before we take a nice commemorative photograph, all of us. And this is my question, where I want to understand if there is a possibility for CMI to explore at some point doing a summer program for students explore their love for math, and also reciprocally for CMI to establish that buzzword, because I understand how, when Miss Aparna was talking about ranking obsessed parents, and when we sometimes tell them to not go by pure rankings, then they also want to see, they want to Google, they want to see a digital footprint, they want to see what buzz a certain institution has created if that institution is not going on ranking. So it definitely benefits the institution also, but it benefits our students a lot more, where they get a chance to work alongside a mentor, understand the pedagogy of an institution, as well as explore their love for certain subjects. So like Promise, which is one of the top math summer programs, like SUMAC and a few others. So Promise now has an India-focused edition where they've
Correct.
partnered with Indian Institute of Sciences in Bangalore. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for CMI also to either start their own program if they don't have one as of now. So pardon me for my ignorance there. There might be something
No,
that
they do. They do one, I think, with Raise a Mathematician Foundation. I think
Yeah, so
CMI
we
does
did
a
that.
program.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
did that last year. Yeah, so Promise. I mean, so one of the Promise coordinators is from CMI. I mean, they did talk to us when they were planning to set up this India operation just maybe a year or two before COVID. As I said, once we come up with our new facility where we will have some more space. So the problem in summer is, so Raising a Mathematician, for example, we did last year. But this year we did the Maths Olympiad training camp. And each of them has a requirement to host about 100 students at a time. And having them both in parallel becomes a challenge because we don't have that much space. So, so I think organizing something of the scale on our own requires a lot of administrative support and logistical things which probably will be beyond our capacity. But working with another, like in the Math Olympiad case, as I said, Homi Bhabha Center does the management, and we just host the camp. And same with Raising Mathematician. They have an organization, and then they hold the camp at different locations. So in this way, I think we are quite open to. So yeah, we are. So as I said, one of the coordinators of Promise is a colleague, and he's very keen to bring, once we have space to accommodate. So either Promise students, or he is even more keen on bringing teachers, math teachers, have a kind of Promise for math teachers, which I think will be in the long run have a larger impact. So we are certainly keen on doing this within the thing that we don't have at the moment anything which is our own. We're unlikely to have anything which is our own, but we support a lot of these things. So there's another national thing called the Madhavan Math Competition, where the final camp is held in CMI. So in fact, I think it was going on last weekend and so on. So this is more for undergraduates, not for school students. So we definitely are open to such opportunities, and hopefully, as I said, once you get a little more space, we will have a little more flexibility in having some of these. See, summer, otherwise, it's a good time for us because it is a bad time to have, invite international people and all that, because nobody wants to come May or June to Chennai. But school students, whether they like it or not, that's the only slot in which they are free. So they have to suffer this, whether they like the weather or not. So summer in that sense is kind of open, except for the only constraint is space. So we keep we ask our students to leave so that we get most of the hostel rooms available for hosting other programs in summer. So that's intentional, because we do want to have other things in summer. So we also do things at college level. So we conduct some programs for bachelor's and master's students also. But certainly this is something we.
Yeah, and that's certainly something you'll hear from us about. We're going to definitely reach out to you to see how we can figure out avenues where our counselors, our members can come see CMI, come meet you, meet your faculty, meet your students. No added pressure, just a couple of hours of your time, and we'll take care of the rest. But Aparna, you had a question, go ahead.
Yeah, a request actually. Dr. Mukund, a lot of the programs, especially the Promise one, for example, they are timed to suit the CBSE, ICSE summer break. So students from our school, which is the IB curriculum or the IGCSE curriculum, end up missing a lot of great summer programs which are organized by institutions in India. We end up missing it because we are having exams in May and early June, and our students end up missing that. So if at all CMI is planning something, please plan a second cohort for students who can attend in June and July, if possible. That's my one request. And the other thing is, in adding to what Punya said, was I kind of, keep searching for programs and opportunities for competitions or challenges for my students. And when I see what US has offered in every subject, in every subject you can imagine, humanities to social sciences to poetry to writing, creative writing, there are so many options. And just in the sphere of math alone, there is so many, not just competitions, challenges, so many options available. Why is it that Indian institutions are not picking it up enough now? I mean, given the vast number of high school students with the capacity and capability and interest to be part of something like this, why is it that Indian institutions are not taking it up that much more? Is it because we are still largely a sort of public university driven system? Or would it mature more if we had more private institutions? Is that the case? Or is it that the public institutions are just overwhelmed with the number of students they're dealing with? I mean, I'm just shocked, whether it's the USA Canada Math Camp, whether it's the University of Waterloo Math competitions. There's so many in just math alone, and every subject has so much, I've discovered. And my students keep saying, ma'am, is there nothing in India that we can't go abroad? It's so expensive to go and do the program in US or somewhere, or even UK. Why is it that we don't have enough in India? And I have no answers for them, because not enough institutions are hosting such programs in India.
So I think probably the key is the lack of the small number of institutions. I think that's the problem. So I think the number of institutions which are capable of hosting or creating a meaningful camp are very few. And they have some limitations in terms of number of people and what else. So something like raising a mathematician or promise, which is done outside the university system by people who are volunteers, will be, I think, more sustainable. I do have some indication that there are more such people entering, this informal space in India, who are at they might have an interest in maths. They went into, say, IT or something, and then at some point, when they're 30, 40, and they're kind of frustrated with monotonous role, then they see some value. So I do see some optimism in that some of these organizations might see if they can create and design these things. I think facilities can be provided, but the real problem is that somebody has to put in the effort to actually design this camp and on one side reach out to students, on the other side assemble the faculty who will teach at these camps. So if somebody has the interest and enthusiasm to do that, I think a place like CMI or even other institutions, I think, would be happy to provide the space to host them. So let's hope that things will pick up. But that's the best I can say.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mukund. I know we're well over time. It's been 12 minutes since we're over time. I just request everyone to turn on their cameras so we can take that photograph before all of you log off. And then I'll give my vote of thanks or whatever. But yeah, it'd be great to see everyone. Hi, Priyanka. So good to see you. Okay, everyone, please turn on your. Oh, hi, Puri. Sorry, this is like a reunion because I'm seeing my friends after so long. Hi, Ankit. Hi, Nidhi. Hi, Neetu. Hi, Raksha. Hi, everyone. Okay, everyone turn on your cameras and we will take the picture now. All right, big smile. Awesome. Okay, Mr. Mukund, because I have to give you a formal thank you. I will give you a formal thank you. You've given us a lot of things to think about. And be rest assured, I'm going to follow up with you for some of the stuff because we really want more access to CMI. We want to come there, we want to see the institution, we want to interact with your faculty, we want to see how your open days can be more open nationally. And we're very happy to work with you as TOC to make all of this happen. Thank you for taking your time out. We know you're very, very busy. Thank you for doing this for us. Thank you, Punya, for being a fantastic co-moderator and for all your lovely questions. And thank you, Aparna, for upping the game with all your insightful questions. You were pretty much de facto a co-moderator as well. Thank you so much for everything and making this happen. Have a great evening, everyone, and have a great rest of the week. And we'll see
Bhakti,
you on.
before we close, can I just make one request of Dr. Mukund? Dr. Mukund, this open day, can you please try and organize a virtual one also? Because there are lots of students who can't make it to your campus in Chennai, but they would really, really love to interact with maybe your faculty or your current students and learn something about the institution. If possible, I really humbly request you to organize a virtual open day, please. Yeah.
Yeah, we did discuss that briefly, and I think we'll try to do that. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity. Great meeting all of you. Bye.
Thank you very
so
much.
Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.